What is up, guys? I am sorry this video was late. I was doing the thing that weebs are notorious for and having a life. That's the only way I can put it. I spent a bit of time on vacation. That messed up my weekend schedule. I had to get back on routine. Just put the video off. And hey, if you're not already sick of my hero content on chapter 237, or 238, I should say. Oh, crap. See, that's how you can tell I'm lacking, because your boy's tight. Actually, it's 237. 238 drops this week. And then we have a Shonen Jump break. So that's something we can look forward to. But I'm going to just dive right into this. Tomura Shigaraki Origins. We were right, boys, but wrong by a week. So we still get the credit. We all called this. We talked about this. It was extensive on Twitter. Everybody was ready for Tomura Shigaraki Origins. It was just a matter of when it would be there. Turns out we get a 3-piece backstory. Ha ha ha. Combos. So, which by the way, Shigaraki, top tier, #1 backstory in the series now at this point. Other people got to catch up. Got to catch up. What we find here is something that I think is very interesting. It's the complacency of society and what is often called the bystander effect, but it's to an nth degree, especially within the context of the My Hero Academia verse. This makes sense due to the fact that when you are growing into a society that is literally structured around the idea that when somebody's in trouble, a random dude in a special costume shows up and uses his superpowers to save the day, it's even easier to be complacent than it is in our current society where we regularly walk past homeless people. And so the idea that it would get to the extent that a child could be left alone on the street isn't that far-fetched. A child with an extremely crusty face that's covered in blood and dirt, definitely likely to get left in the street, especially when you factor in like Shigaraki's got red eyes, blue hair. If you're an 80-year-old lady who grew up in a society that had like quirk terrorism because of the fact that quirks were becoming a thing and then all these other things unfolding, 20+% crime rate, this is before All Might, all these things, well, this isn't before All Might, but this is 5 years before or after All Might started. I highly doubt that the crime rate had dropped to the 6% that it is at in the current timeline, or was at the start of the series. Now we're at a 9% crime rate. So there's a lot of reasons to be on guard and worried about a small child that looks like he's cracked out walking up to you. And this is just another example of how everything that could sociologically go wrong, or everything socially that could hurt somebody, ultimately came home to roost within the life of Tomura. You had his family that was gaslighting him, complacently standing by, watching as his father abused him. You had him struggling as he walked through the streets, and all these citizens and civilians are just sitting there watching him, letting it all unfold. Everybody in this world has enabled his suffering to some degree. He's in a major metropolitan area. It's not like he's walking through Oconomowoc or any of these other small towns and people are like, oh man, no, he is brushing shoulders. This is comparable to walking through any major metropolitan area during noon in the downtown area and nobody's saying anything. You've been to New York? Boom, like that. Chicago, like that. LA, Milwaukee, Minneapolis. These are all like big cities. Detroit. Imagine if you're like in the US, or if you're, let's say, I have fans that are in Europe. I don't think I'm big enough for that, but if I do, I would say compare it to like walking through London or Dublin or Berlin or any of these, like, do I have fans in Russia? Doubt it. But Moscow, any of these major important cities, Hong Kong, Tokyo, like all these major cities that you could be in, Mexico City, Tijuana, like all these places that you could go and just be messed up and nobody would care because that's not my job, that's not my responsibility. And that's something that is toxic within a workplace environment. It's toxic within a familial environment when somebody puts off a chore and then everybody gets yelled at because one person in the house didn't do what they needed to do. It is consistently a problem within human society that ain't my job is a mentality that, especially in herd think, is extremely dangerous, extremely toxic, and extremely enabling of problematic behaviors, perpetuating and just continuing to exist in general. And he even says here, if only back then someone had reached out to help me. One of the things that I think is very important to point out is that the layering of the panels in that phrasing, when he says, if only back then, if someone had reached out to help me, is very reminiscent to back in chapter, I believe it was 221, where Tomura was telling the doctor, yes, I would like to destroy everything. He said, I hate everyone and everything. Why don't I destroy it? and you see a paneling with Nine, who's going to be the villain in the upcoming movie, with Deku, with the skyscrapers, society literally failed. Tenko, when you hear the expression "it takes a village to raise a child," normally you think of, oh well, that's rustic. He's talking about instilling within them like the principles, but that also means it is our job to take care of the children around us and to make sure that they don't get hurt or aren't, taking like unnecessarily severe damage. It's important that we look out for the children in the community, because at the end of the day, the children in the community grow to protect us, to take care of us, but also it's our job to make sure that the generations after them, the planet after we're gone, all these things are taken care of. And by sitting there saying that ain't my job, by being in an active village, you enable the toxicity to breed within and fester and eventually destroy the civilization of which you have been working in and enjoying the entirety of your life. And that's kind of what Shigaraki is. He is like the problems coming home to roost of being a complacent society and enabling these kinds of like thought patterns, etc. The marginalization this is like a marginalized 5-year-old. You're not supposed to feel marginalized at 5 by society. This is something that is definitely a shortcoming of the quirk-based, hero-based society, and his problem is directly stemming from the quirks. This is why, again, people say quirks are a disease. I highly doubt before the superhero society, if anybody had seen a 5-year-old bloodied, haggard, no shoes, they're at least taking that kid to a doctor. But there's people literally paid to save this kid's day, and that's what people took away from that. This also harkens back to what Stain was talking about, like real heroes just do it. Real heroes make moves. Think back to how like Deku was at the beginning of the series, not a licensed hero, not just sitting there watching it happen, willing to go. Think back to chapter 220, where people are so accustomed to being bystanders that they don't even register properly to like run for their lives. Bakugo should have been able to take out every single person that tried to pocket pick these people or pickpocket these people, and he couldn't due to the fact that one of the pedestrians was so used to like just other people handling things and like so complacent and la-di-da in her daily life, which Shigaraki himself calls out during the encounter at the mall, that she just stopped to take pictures of like what was going on, and like Bakugo had to stop what he was doing and go like stop the pole from falling on her as All Might was pulling her out of danger. But the point is that like these complacencies, these luxuries, these things, they build up in your mind, and you start to take the most simple and mundane things for granted when you really, really, really should not be doing such. And the thing is that you know that times are changing within the context of this chapter. It's due to the timing itself of when things go down, because when Tomura Shigaraki runs into these little children after being taken in by All for One, he gets attacked by, like some just degenerates. They make fun of him, and they even comment later on in the chapter that, hey, there's more hero agencies popping up, which means that like crime, like heroes are like rising to the occasion. Finally, we're having a shifting in the tides. And if you remember, it was even said that with the arrival of All Might, All for One began to plan for his downfall, and that it's apparent that this was because of what was going on within the context of society around All for One, even though he himself was realistically not in danger at this time period. You essentially get a speech from All for One about how morality is abstract, it's not absolute. It's a very postmodernist take on morality and ethics, and it kind of harkens and calls out that idea of like even though we will always say moral absolutes don't exist, when people take those to the extremes, then it always leaves you with a bad taste in your mouth. But to that same context, it does not contradict the ideology you've attempted to espouse. In fact, your bad taste is a reflection of you not being able to completely believe that morality is not absolute, because if you believe that, you would be able to walk away from anyone doing anything and not feel anything. But that's not the case, because we do have feelings, we do have impositions, we do project, we do want certain things within the context of society. So it's not that he's especially special, it's just that he's aware that the structure of society is built upon what people want, and what most people want is stability, and therefore the rules tend to gravitate towards that. Even though, yes, there's people who claim to love to live in chaos and all these other things, but even within that, there's a rhythm, there's a flow. You can find their beat. It's like improvisational jazz. Yes, it's hectic. Yes, it seems manic, but at the end of the day, if you were truly capable of it, you could dissect a person's brain and start predicting the patterns. If you psychoanalyze them long enough and studied their craft and all these other things, you would know what kind of notes they like, because that's what they're creating. Ultimately, an improvised tapestry of beauty towards what they believe, enjoy, and indulge within. But you get Shigaraki here, and he's like, yeah, I really want to kill them. That's why he's on the ground itching. And I think the fact that the itching is not just him, freaking out. It's not just like, it's literally a symptom of his quirk, where his body is like, yo, dog, let's go kill people. Like today, not tomorrow, today. We need to go kill somebody. We need to go break something. We need to go destroy something. And I recently saw an interview, and this is what sucks about, like, Twitter is an amazing place because it lets you find and see a bunch of things, but it also makes it pretty much impossible to source because you read something on the fly and then you just keep going. And you don't think, oh man, if somebody wants to really call me out about this, am I going to be able to defend it later? No, I'm not going to be able to defend this. I'm not even going to be able to give you the picture I saw this in. But I remember reading an interview recently where it was talking about how he didn't want to spoil it, but not every villain can be saved, and Shigaraki is beyond saving. The reality is this: Shigaraki was wired from birth to be a harbinger of destruction. At best, he could have been like a super soldier, chips are down, send in the Shigaraki to just decay everyone. But he could not be counted on to like actually save people. Though one of the things that I would like to see now is, because they were saying he's subconsciously controlling his quirk, is for current Shigaraki to move back to younger Shigaraki style of quirk usage. Let me explain. It's not so much that I don't enjoy dusting, but I do believe that if he were to, let's say, gather someone, want to interrogate them, it'd be kind of cool to see him touch someone and just create one little line of decay and just have their finger fall off. Something like that, just causing them pain, causing them to slowly fall to pieces, instead of having it just be, I'm going to decay your whole body. This opens up the doors, but also it would allow him to use his quirk against Gigantomachia if he reverted to using that kind, so it would essentially cause multiple lacerations in Gigantomachia, causing him to actually take damage and bleed. It's a way for him to fight back against opponents he doesn't want to kill. So I would like to see him have a more structured usage of his quirk, where he can just go, alright, I'll just decay up, like his entire arm, causing it to bleed, rupture, and take a bunch of damage, something like that. Ways to really get in at the HP. And of course, we get little Shigaraki. And the best thing about this, one of the best things about this chapter is one of the things we talked about is, where do those extra hands come from? Where do those extra hands come from? Why does he have 7 pairs of hands when he only had 5 family members? Boom. Horikoshi knew we were going to ask. Horikoshi provides an answer. And it's just as dark as killing his family, because it's essentially him going, killing these thugs, and then All For One being like, yo, dog, let's go pick up them hands and give him a gift. Also, what's interesting is like where his psyche transitions. Even All For One says exactly what I told you guys. Okay, yeah, that's a little bit of a flex. Is that the family members' hands would help him stay calm. They would repress him, hold his quirk in. He was subconsciously repressing his quirk. All these things that I've been saying since I started doing this channel, like in April, about Shigaraki and the utilization of his quirk since chapter Sleepy dropped. Confirmed hard on paper, ink, digital ink. Telling you, yes, this is everything that it was. Hail Hori. So we keep going, and he's talking about how he feels like he's allowed to do anything. All For One gives him the congratulations and a new name. And then we get the most charming kindergarten picture of all time of Shigaraki wearing all them hands that he took from those people. And it is glorious. And we get the explanation of what Tomura means, which I'm sure Japanese readers already had an idea. I don't speak Japanese. I don't read kanji. I don't do any of that. The most I can say is, Watashi ga gita? Shirimasen? There's nothing. So, we get the explanation, and the big reveal that Shigaraki is All For One's last name. I believe that All For One is a big enough fan of flexing to give Tomura his actual last name. Because the reality is if he is this old, his name being Shigaraki, if he's 100, 200 years old, like it's alleged, that doesn't matter. There's dozens, hundreds of Shigarakis by now. Or there's none, and you can't even track it because everybody fucking died. What does it matter? So yeah, I would see him actually doing it. One of the things that I love about this chapter is Shigaraki's character development here. The thing that Stain said that he lacked was conviction. And yes, he walked away from his encounter with Izuku talking about killing All Might. It's all about that. It all circles back to that. But finally, he's like, no, it's not about All Might. It's about who I am. The future's unnecessary. whatever lies ahead, I just want them to live how they see fit. I just want them to live how they see fit. I want them to live how they see fit. This is what's important to me, because this is Shigaraki getting not only past his his painful attachments to his family, all that other stuff, but him embracing the current League of Villains as his family, saying that yes, though their goals, their machinations, their dreams, there's something that he's actually willing to fight for. And the thing that I think is especially important about this is a lot of people weren't sure if like he actually had any feelings or attachments to the League. And so this was like one of those things like, well, especially when you look back to when the Vanguard Action Squad happened, he kind of made them sound like pawns, and Kurogiri called him out for that. He's like, no, 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 I value my pieces. Now, this is the culmination. This is the proof. This is the true realization and manifestation of that actual attachment to his like comrades. That yes, he does care. He does care about Compress, and you know, he does care about Spinner and Dabi and Toga and Twice, and he did care about Magne. And so this is also paints a lot of those older speeches in a whole nother light too, because when you think about what he says to Twice back during the Overhaul arc, when he's like, this is how you make things right, this is how you make amends, and then he goes on about how much he hates Overhaul. Now you understand his new family. Overhaul killed somebody in it, was never gonna get to walk away. But also, he did care about the idea of Twice making retribution. Think back to when he took Twice's mask off because he was freaking out. That was purely about getting Twice to focus on what he was saying right then and there, because he instantly put the mask back on him once he got him to stop panicking, and like once he like got him focused on what they were gonna do, explained the plan, put the mask back on him. Just needed him to calm down and like focus on something else instead of the issue at hand for a split second, so we could talk to him and actually make sure that his words reached him. Not only is he paying attention to the psychological health, he's paying attention to the psychological triggers, the way they utilize them in ways that are healthy and demonstrative towards helping them get towards what they need to be. And now we get confirmation that he does actually want them to be able to live freely. And I think that's an excellent bit of, whether it's development, whether it's characterization, we can go back and forth on which one of these it is. Regardless, it's a good piece of writing, and that is what matters. It's a way to display who he is and where he wants to go. And the thing is, he doesn't care about like what's coming after this. What he cares about is ensuring his people are fine right here, right now, and that he's gonna live freely. He is truly the freest man. That's his goal. He's trying to be the freest man in My Hero Academia. Yeah, I don't like you, I destroy you. Because that's literally what his quirk is. Think about it. His power is more or less to remove that which he does not like. So the idea of him consistently sitting there and not removing things that he does not like completely goes against the very wiring and nature of his being. That's just what he is. And one of the things I like is that he goes, you know, on that fateful day, I wanted to murder my father, and so I did it. Yes, but also keep in mind, this is older Shigaraki looking at younger Tenko, and I do think that there was a bit of remorse. I do still think that kid did not want to do it, but it doesn't matter because that's who he is now. All that matters, who you were 5 days ago doesn't mean as much as who you are right now. What matters is the consequences of 5 days ago and how they affect right now and who you're trying to be in the future and who you are. You can be the biggest piece of shit 2 years ago, but the reality is if you move to a new town and you meet new friends and you get a new job and you do all these other things and none of those people come back to reach out and you don't have warrants for your arrest, none of your life matters before now. That's the reality of the situation. You're going to be the nicest person, but if you go get a new job and you decide to be a complete cockwaffle of a boss, nobody's going to give a fuck that you saved 500 puppies. Except for people who really, 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 really love dogs. I ain't one of them. I'm not going to give a fuck that you saved 500 puppies. I'm going to look at you and call you a cockwaffle and keep going about my day. So, we get the emphasis here on Gigantomachia after we get his like psychological closure. You've got, once again, more video game references, which we're about to get into because it's actually something a little beautiful. So, you've got the Gigantomachia charging through. You see multiple Liberation Army members doing everything in their power. Buildings flying, people flying, someone's puppy probably flying. And then you cut ahead to, you know, you get the League of Villains perspective on this Gigantomachia attack. And this is one of those things that I really love, is like you've got Twice, and here's the thing, this is very important. the fact that Twice is able to just comment on this and say he's headed for Shigaraki, da 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 da, that means that as soon as Skeptic saw this man, he was like, forget all this shit with Jinbu Bagawara. I need to get back to Redestro, which we saw in the comms. This is further confirmation of that, because Twice is just chilling in this chapter. Just chilling. Out here laid up like, yo, dog, what's up? I gotta keep Toga safe, which is smart. And then you have like Mr. Compress, who's like, yo, Dabi, we were foolish. Gigantomachia was not going all out, which makes a lot of sense considering he did like that and blew them away. He basically did a Delaware smash with all of his fingers. So he's like, but one of the things that I like is that I was viewing Dabi as kind of the right hand of Shigaraki now that Kurogiri was gone. But when you look at the way that Compress is talking, it seems to be Mr. Compress, because what he directly says is Shigaraki is in grave danger. Finish your own battles and assist him. And you have Giten going Redestro. So Giten is on the same wavelength. He's like, yo, I need to go like help this guy out. I need to go save Redestro. I can't afford to have like that monster coming after him. And then you have, you know, Spinner getting attacked, and he's like screaming out for Shigaraki, and then he destroys the father hand. So he kills his father twice. Once as a child and again as an adult, to show him that you don't get to push my face down no more, little nigga. So, but the thing that I think is fascinating about this is that we're getting, when I look at the League of Villains, they're kind of built like an RPG group or like a D&D campaign to a certain degree. And they even hit on like some of the like crazy like tropes, right? And like you often have like the wandering swordsman who's very empty, and like his lord becomes his like vassal. He's like, oh, I'm a vassal for my lord. My daimyo is everything. My shogun. That's Spinner, whether you've realized it or not. Spinner has been the wandering swordsman trope spun on its head. Yes, he's not drinking liquor and smoking cigarettes like everybody else, but he's a lost and aimless dude with no direction, attaching to himself to a vassal. And then, in the same way that, like, to a lesser degree, Yami was wandering the woods, doing whatever in Black Clover, and then he was like, yo, I'm just out here doing things, having dark magic. And then he was like, yo, I respect you, Julius. I respect Julius Novachrono. I'll follow him. I'll be a magic knight with this dude. I'll have a guild with this dude. I'll do all that. Or you have, like, Zoro, who's like a wandering swordsman, who meets a crazy-ass dude in Luffy, who just wants to be free, shows up, helps him out of a dark spot, and he's like, yo, Luffy is my pirate king, and I will bow to the greatest swordsman in the world in order to learn from him, in order to become the necessary blade for the pirate king. That's what Spinner's on right now. He's like, yo, Shigaraki is everything. That's my dude. Like, and that's the thing, is that because they were both like, yo, I have a hollowness inside me. I have this weird feelings. And he's like, yo, you get it. You're our leader. You're our leader. You understand the hollowness and the misery and the depression that I carry within me, and you go to do that. Shigaraki, like, Spinner is basically like a swordsman. You can call him the knight, the paladin, whatever you want to call him. But that's what he is. Shigaraki, like, they are very much structured like a standard protagonist group to a certain degree, because then you have like Mr. Compress, who's like the smarter, wiser one, who doesn't necessarily have a high combat ability as far as his power goes, but he gives good advice. He's got good analysis. He's out here and he's got strong utility, and his power can be broken under the right context. Then you've got and so you could think of, to a certain degree, because also when you think about it from like a D&D perspective, Mr. Compress has to be prepared. He has to have his spells prepped for the day. So, you know, if you've ever played D&D, you got to make sure you have all the ingredients. You prepare all your spells. You can only have certain tiers. He has to have all his weapons preemptively compressed. He has to go out of his way to like use them properly. He has to make sure he's timing. Once he throws away the marble, he doesn't have any cast of it left, etc., etc. Dabi is more like a sorcerer or a warlock, where he's got actually more like a warlock. He's got like the Eldritch Blast. He's got a very specific move type. He's got lower con scores, being Constitution and Health, and then, but at the same time, he's a major hitter. He's got like, his AoE is kind of ridiculous. He's got like a lot of pie plates. He's also like the edgy dude in the group that shows up. He's like the right hand that like shows up, whoops ass, doesn't really feel like talking to people that much. He's the antisocial badass that like you'll see in some shonen. He's kind of like the Sasuke to a certain degree of their group dynamic. Shigaraki with his big dreams is your standard protagonist. He doesn't necessarily fit into the D&D schematic as much. He's more like a general leader, charismatic to a certain degree, high power level, going at people as hard as possible. You have Toga, who is like your rogue or your assassin, who just shows up, does things, is constantly sneaking, blending in. And then you have Twice, who's an excellent support character with the way he can make doppelgangers, but he's also he's kind of like a ranger to a certain degree because he controls pets and stuff like that. But like by pets, I mean like his doubles. He makes doppelgangers, summons them, brings them into battle, helps out his allies, is highly mobile, etc. And so you have an entire group structured more or less like there's the guy who can't do anything on his own necessarily, which is Twice, unless he does unlimited Twice works. You got these guys that you got the crazy girl that's an assassin that works alongside the right hand, who's really manic, who's set up to fight the main girl of the series, and who they both, and she's even rivals in love with that. That's actually another thing that I plan on talking about in another video. I might have lied. My next rivals video is probably not going to be Deku and Shigaraki, because I got two other pairings that I want to talk about. One being Deku and Bakugo, and the other one being Ochako and Toga, and I don't need to wait to get those two out of the way. So I'm going to try to make sure I knock out those rivals videos while I'm cat sitting. I have some Anaki analysis coming, and it'll be featuring Apollo, so he's coming back to the channel for a little while. So I don't know if you guys really like me sitting around with the cat while trying to discuss My Hero Academia. My next couple videos, as long as I actually have the time to do them, are for you. I'm definitely going to be able to do the deconstruction though. That should be Sunday. That should be no problem. Going to try to make sure I do one, at least another video, mostly because I made you guys wait for this one so long because I was busy, and I don't think that's really fair. Regardless, like I need to like get better at balancing this. I feel like part of the problem is that I feel like I usually don't think I have a busy life, and then it's like, oh wait, I work full time. I try to go to the gym. Oh yeah, and then so it's like, oh, I work 40 hours a week. Oh, if I go to the gym, I'm there for like 2 hours. So if I'm there like 6 days a week, that's like another 12 hours. So it's like, oh, that's 52 hours of the week gone. I try to sleep at least 5-6 of them. Oh, and then my commute, before we even factor in commuting, which is usually like around 30+ minutes at least. Like I leave my house at like 7:30 in the morning, and sometimes when I go to the gym, I don't get back until 8 if I go after work. So like that kind of gives you a perspective on like what some of my days are like just basically 12-hour days where I'm just busy. So I'm gonna try to like get more videos out there for you guys, but I like being open, so I want you guys to understand that like if I'm ever like in a lull or I'm not putting out as many analysis videos, it's literally just because I'm a busy person, and I'm trying to figure out the balance for that, because I really do want this channel to grow and give you guys analysis that you enjoy, and that you feel like it contributes to your overall like well-being in life. I don't know, I want you guys to just be satisfied, like sitting down, throwing this on while you're cleaning your room, listening to it. Maybe you listen to it like it's a podcast on your way to school or work. Whatever the context may be, I want you to feel comfortable enjoying it, and I want to make sure I'm actually providing it for you, because some of you will come here, and I actually had some people like, yo, when is that video coming? And I was like, shit, I gotta get on this. So I appreciate you guys that decide to watch this video, even though it's, like almost a week late, or not a week late, but it's 4 days late. That's kind of late. That's pretty late. That's late. I'm going to be honest with myself. That's late. But yeah, so you've got the League of Villains dynamic, which I might do a whole video on, just because, and the reason for that is, I think if I do it, I'm going to end up doing a reread, of course, but I might specifically try to do some rereads around like the League of Villains, because their dynamic is fascinating and they're becoming more and more friends. So especially at the end of this arc, understand this. No matter how busy I am, I'm making time to do a video on every member of the League of Villains. Period. You can @ me on Twitter about that. Like, if you can be like, yo, Anaki, where's that video? Where's that video? Because you're like, yo, which league member is next? If you want, just let me know. I'll even run a poll, and I'll let you guys vote on which League of Villains member gets their video first for at the end of this arc. And then I'll do that in order. Whoever got the most votes, or if there was an other reference. And here's the thing, since Twitter only gives me 4 options, what I'll do is I'll put like Shigaraki, Dabi, Spinner, and then I'll put other. And then if you hit other, and then I want you to put the person in just respond to me as a tweet. Now here's the thing that's gonna get hard. Make sure you read whose responses, because whichever one gets the most likes, let's say somebody hits other and then they put Toga, and then Toga gets like 90 likes. That's not gonna happen. That would be half my follower base like paying attention and liking it. But if that happens, then boom, like, and then I look at the votes and I'm like, all right, so Toga got the most votes overall. then that's where it's gonna go, and then like that'll be first, and I'll just go in chronological order from there, starting with most votes to least, or I'll do least votes to most, because the one you anticipate like the most is the one that I want to make sure it has the most time and thought put into it, and that way you can be like, all right, this is building into something greater. With that being said, though, this was actually a really good chapter. I love the fact that we got past, we're getting past the backstories, we're getting back into the, don't get me wrong, this is like the best backstory in My Hero Academia, but getting into the present, establishing this, seeing where the conclusion of this is going to go, because at this point it's starting to look like the battle's going to come to a head where everybody's going to rush towards where Gigantomachia is headed, and in the process it's going to turn into a full-on team battle. If that's the case, I'm 100% here for it. That's what I'd love to see. My favorite One Piece fight is Straw Hats versus Oars. So if we get the League of Villains, like an actual fight, not just like seeing like them struggling with them, but the League of Villains versus the MLA, like executives versus like them, or they manage to handle the like the MLA, and then it's the League of Villains versus Gigantomachia, I'm here for it. I love team up battles, especially when they're done excellently, or like when they actually involve teamwork and cooperation. That's part of why, even though Seraph of the End isn't like the best series, I still enjoy reading it, because the team battles are actually pretty phenomenal, the way they rely on each other and utilize formations. So anyway, I'm going to end the video here because it ended up being like 30 minutes long. The thumbnail that I'm going to be using this week is actually going to be a picture of the lake that I was by this past weekend, so at least you can see the views that I was enjoying while I was on vacation. So you guys have a wonderful day. Anaki out.